Good evening, everyone. How you doing? Guess who this is? This is your favorite Ruby Girl, Kay. And guess what? As always, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. It's time for the Ruby Girl Talk. And tonight, oh my goodness, tonight, I have Dr. Pamela Straker. Did I say that right?
You sure did. They
Oh,
call me Dr. Pam, though.
okay. That's even easier for me, Dr. Pam. Dr. Pam, welcome to the Ruby Girl Talk. Tonight, I'm excited because you have so much information to give, and it's so pertinent for what's going on now because it seems like there's more caregiving going on. It's a lot of people that were sick from COVID, haven't really recovered, and there's so much sickness going on, and so many people have to step into the role of caregiver without being prepared for it. But after tonight, after they listen to you, after they hear what you got to say, I believe that they're going to be more prepared for the role that they have stepped into. So usually I tell my guests to go on my page and look for this video. But because you are a doctor, I'm going to serve you tonight.
Oh,
I'm going to go
what a
on my
sweetheart.
page. I'm going to find this and I'm going to make sure that your people have a chance to see this wonderful interview. So I just shared it for you.
Thank
Okay.
you so
All
much.
right. So before we begin, I want to tell everybody about Ruby Girl. Ruby Girl comes from Proverbs 31:10. Who can find a virtuous woman for her price is far above the price of a ruby? So, ladies, that make you rare, virtuous, and certainly valuable. So go to rubygirl.net. Get the newest t-shirt for the month. I hope you can see it. It is camouflage. It's the camouflage pattern. So once a month, I change the pattern of the shirt. And so the shirt is a specialty shirt. It's made to order. So go on my website. You can only get the camouflage. Matter of fact, after Thursday, it's going to be gone. We have a new style for breast cancer month that I'm introducing. And y'all, it is cute, really cute. So you definitely don't want to miss it. But also, I want to tell you on October the 11th, which is next week, we will be revealing who the Ruby Girl of 2022 is. So we have this contest going on that's just about to end in a few days. And we're going to pick one of these ladies, one of these 7 ladies to be the Ruby Girl of 2022. She will be representing my brand. She will be putting her business out there. It's going to be an awesome connection. But guess what? You will not be able to see the reveal unless you buy a ticket. So next week, you will not see me on Facebook. We're going to be in a private Zoom room having a great time. And if you want to be part of that great time, go to Eventbrite and just put in the Ruby Girl reveal, the Ruby Girl of 2022 reveal. I think when you put in Ruby Girl, that'll show up. I'm going to go back after the broadcast and add the link. So, Dr. Pamela, thank you for your patience. And once again, welcome to the Ruby Girl Talk. Introduce yourself to the audience. But before you do, look, everybody that's out there watching, this is what I want you to do. We're going to participate in this together, and it's free. If you hit the share button, you will be able to share this with hundreds of people. You hear me? Thousands of people. Let's multiply it. And if you share it, guess what? People will be able to connect with Dr. Pamela and they'll be educated by the words that she's going to say. So share, share, share. Give us some hearts too. Give us some love and put your questions in the comment because you're going to have a lot of questions. So Dr. Pamela, please introduce yourself to the audience.
So, hi, I first want to thank you for including me in your program this evening. I am just so excited. This is an opportunity for me to share with others. My name is Dr. Pam Straker, and I work to empower caregivers to find balance, to establish boundaries, and to care for themselves as much as they care for others.
Wow. You know, the key part was what you said at the end, to teach caregivers how to care for themselves, because You think because they know how to care for others, they know how to care for themselves. But it's just like a giver. A giver can give so much that they hurt themselves. And a caregiver can care for so many other people that they push, I'm okay. I might hurt a little bit, but this person is hurting worse. This person really needs me. So that's the most important thing. If you are a caregiver, that I need you to sit down and listen and get from tonight. It's just like what they say on the airplane, put your oxygen mask on first before you help somebody else. What the God tells us in this word to love ourselves first before we can love others. So yourself is just as important as the person that you're taking care of. Right, Dr. Pam?
Well, I have to tell you, you are speaking words of truth. Those are spiritual words. They are deeply, deeply important. And the truth of the matter is that it is the way that you will be successful as a caregiver.
Yeah. So caregiving, we know is not easy. Most people just happen into the role. It just happens because maybe your loved one or your spouse, something happened to you and happened to them, and you just have to step up. So what caused you to focus on caregiving?
Well, first, I want to say that part of what I'm trying to communicate is that caregiving is just a part of life. We all will require some level of caregiving at some point in our lives. I was called to caregiving, and I believe that caregiving is a calling. And I was called to caregiving as a result of my father's increasing memory loss. That was the first event that happened in my life. And at that time, he was being cared for by my mom. But as you know, my mom had become the caregiver, but she was doing all of the caregiving plus trying to maintain her regular level with my dad. And, this was 13 years. Most people do not go through 13 years of a progressive memory loss, but my dad did. And as a result of that, my mom was struggling. And at some point, I looked at their behavior and I looked at what was happening, and I saw that it was time for me to step in. And that meant that there were tasks that I had to take on. Most caregivers just that happens to most caregivers. Most caregivers begin to notice things. The gas is left on the stove. Your parent or your loved one is not able to manage things the way that they used to manage them. And you find that you have to step in. In my case, I found that my parents who were trying to, do all the shopping for groceries, etc., they were not able to do it the same way. So one day I came home, and in their driveway, the garage door was open. And I live in the Northeast. And so not only was the garage door open, but the snowblower was gone. So I came to the house, and when I came in, there were my parents struggling. They had brought groceries. And unlike the usual trips where everything would have been put away and, they might have been sitting talking, everything was strewn around the counters, and my mother was making tea. So it was very clear that she had struggled to get my dad in. By this time, he was having some ambulation problems. And all she had energy to do at that point was to get the stuff in and to make tea. And that was one of the first moments that I knew that I was being called to step in. And from that point on, I did the grocery shopping. By the way, the snowblower had been stolen, and I did replace it very quickly because in the Northeast, we couldn't do without it. But that was my first calling. The second calling came when a cousin of mine developed breast cancer. And she was at the same time being considered for a very important position. And she wondered whether or not she should go for the position because of the breast cancer. And the position was going to require her to move. And she asked me candidly, do you think I should take the position? And there was my second calling to caregiving. Because as you know, when a person is being treated for cancer, it can be a harrowing event. So eventually she took the position, she moved, and then my role was to make certain that she got her treatments, that her setup where she was in the condition that she needed it to be. So I was flying out on a regular basis. I was lining up her friends to help on a regular basis. And that was quite dramatic. And the third calling came when my little mom, the year after my father passed away, my little mom had her first stroke. And so it was clear, not from the first one, but from the second of 4 strokes, that I had to step in. And that was when it really became extremely clear that my caregiving role was determined. It was determined spiritually, and that I would have to do this.
So let me ask you this. Did you see some of that caregiving in you when you were younger?
The truth is, yes. I didn't know what to call it, but I did see it in myself when I was younger. And the truth of the matter is that I come from a family of caregivers, but I did see it in myself. When I was younger, I was always the one, my sister will share that I was the one following the rules, kind of helping out if the table needed to be set. But I also, I felt a particular interest in helping others who appeared to need me, and to need any services that I could provide in terms of helping them to get over a struggle, helping them in whatever way I could. And so, yes, I did. And as a young person, I was very invested in children. And that is why I became a child psychologist initially, before going on and, continuing my journey to be an adult psychologist, etc.
Got you. Because some things show up in us when we're small. When we're younger, small, you can be small at any age, but when we're younger, and we just don't realize it until we get older and we have that aha moment, like, this has always been in me. Everybody's not a caregiver. Some people will give you care. I'm a give you care type of person because I was thrown into caregiving. At the age of 12, I was taking care of my great grandmother and my uncle, and they both had dementia. So imagine a 12-year-old taking care of 2 older adults. And what
That is
kind
a
of
tough job. That's
it
a tough job.
it was really it was tough. But let me tell you what was the straw that broke the camel's back. My uncle one day decided he was just gonna leave. So I'm like, you can't leave. We were in the country. So he grabbed up a hammer. He was like, I'm leaving. I'm like, bye. And so I did that because I believed he would have used it on me. I ducked, I ran, and I was like, I'm not stopping him. So I called the family. I was like, he's walking up the road. And, while we lived in the country, it was some houses that had dogs that would come out and attack. I think my uncle with that hammer would have been okay.
Absolutely.
And so my auntie had to come get him. And after that, he went to live with somebody else. but I still was taking care of my grandmother. So I took care of her from 14 to 18. So I would go to school and I would be in the house all day. So I'm going to say this to people that are using young people to take care of older people: don't do it. Let that child be a child. Even if they sit for them for a while, don't. I sat in the house 5 days a week. I couldn't do any after school activities. So I say this to anybody that's out there. Yes, you can use your children to teach them how to care for people, but also allow them to be a child also. So name 3 common issues that caregivers should focus on, and then tell us quickly, how would you address them?
Well, the first issue is self-care planning.
Mhm.
So many caregivers find themselves in the situation that you described. So they can't get out. They become frozen because they see the dangers that are existing for their loved ones, and they feel responsible for taking care of their loved ones. But they must also focus on their own self-care. And that means they must continue with health checks. That means because most caregivers are female, it means you must continue with your annual exam. You must continue with your breast exams. You must, if needed, get emotional or mental health care. We're now at a point where we can talk about this more readily, but mental health care is a huge issue for caregivers because often they feel trapped. They feel overwhelmed. There's so much that goes on with it that there is a need to have support as you go through taking care of another human being. And taking over another person's life is rather incredible and it's daunting. And finally, I would say that there needs to be a resource assessment and planning for the future for your loved one and for yourself. When I speak to caregivers in the coaching that I do, I really talk to caregivers about looking at what you're going to need as you go along in time. So many of us have not planned for what our own needs will be. And that's a big, big deal. We need to have our wills done. We need to have our healthcare proxies done. And we need to have, and I'll speak about it a little bit later as we're talking, but we need to have certain things in place so that we can make certain that the things that we need as we go through life will be there.
That's good, because people don't plan for their caretaking. We just feel like we're just going to be healthy. And when we start to decline, then we think about it. But by the time you start to decline, you're in a place where you really can't plan forward.
Well,
Somebody, am I right?
you said something very important.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, caregiving is always associated with aging
Mm-hmm.
and with decline.
Mm-hmm.
We need to change that discussion. And
Mm-hmm.
I believe that caregiving needs to be discussed at a much earlier age so that people can plan adequately for how they will age. It should be really a part of the lifespan discussion. This is something that's going to come for all of us. And I can tell you some very dramatic stories where people did not adequately plan. You know, a lot of people are afraid of writing a will. They're afraid of having a healthcare proxy because they feel that that person will have some control over them, et cetera, et cetera. But it's coming. At some point, we're going to need others. And it's important to go through life knowing that you've put your plan in place.
Mm. You're right. You're right. Like I said, by the time we want to plan for it, we actually need it. And then your family's scrambling. Like we were joking, I was joking about like my funeral planning, different stuff like that. And after I'm gone, and I'm like, I'm just dead, doesn't matter what they do with my body. But my auntie had a talk with me. She was like, we don't know your wishes, you
Mhm.
know. And and I thought about it. I said, well, if they don't know my wishes of after I'm dead, they definitely don't know my wishes of if something happened to me and somebody had to take care of me, because it's just me. I mean, my mom, dad gone. I don't have a husband. I don't have children. I am concerned about who's gonna take care of me. I feel like I'm just gonna end up in a nursing home somewhere, and
So
I gotta be
again,
friendly.
mm,
You hear me? Because I'm gonna need my
well,
friends.
let me talk. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Many of us believe that we can depend on our friends.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that if your friends are within your age range, they
Mm-hmm.
will be dealing with the very same issues that you're dealing with. That's number one. So we have to be realistic about what we can depend on from friends. The other thing about it is that we need to look at what our options are well before we get to the point of needing the options. So you said, in our culture, and I'm going to call it our African American Black culture, and in many other cultures, the idea of putting a loved one in a nursing home is completely, it's just not acceptable. I will tell you, however, that there are options in terms of congregate care now that may be suitable for some, not for everyone. Every type of care is not for everyone, but you should know about it. And certainly, if you needed to use it either temporarily or because there are times when people might need it for respite care or, something like that, you need to know how you can access it. So there are things you need to put in place so that you can make sure that to the best of your ability, you've planned. What you don't want is to leave your loved ones or your friends with a situation where there's a funeral and there isn't any way to take care of that funeral. There isn't any way to make sure that you are treated in what you would want, you know, in as close to what you would want as possible. You won't be there, but you would not want to leave behind, I'm going to do this, a mess.
Yeah. All right. It's time for a break. It's time for a break. So, Dr. Pam, give us a 60-second pitch. And while you're doing your pitch, I want to go on Facebook, see if you got some questions out there, and go ahead and just blow our minds. You got 60 seconds.
Well, I am at the end of our presentation today. I'm going to really ask that the members of this audience sign up because I will be doing podcasts. I will be developing groups for caregivers, small groups, so that their questions can be answered, so that I can help as much as I can to make certain that caregivers are taken care of. I'm hoping that tonight's program is only the beginning and that we will continue to have these types of discussions. We will be giving you the information on how to reach me and how to send me messages and how to make certain that you're on my mailing list.
Love it. Great job. Great job. So we got people watching. They just said hello. They just giving us some greetings.
Hi,
Lakia Maxwell says, great information. Thanks. Thank you for having this conversation.
thank
Um,
you.
did I just cut off somebody? Oh, I see. I see some of the Ruby Girl contestants are out there. Hey, getting them points, aren't y'all? Thank you so much, Dr. Pamela. Thank you so much. This has been really good, really good. It's giving me information of what I need to do to set my life in order. I'm trying to see. Oh, okay. Somebody said hello again. So This is the second part of the show. Thank you, Dr. Pamela. She gave us some pretty heavy information in the beginning. So what are some of the concerns of a caregiver?
So when we get into caregiving, one of the primary concerns is danger. So we are concerned that our loved one may fall, that our loved one may leave the house, and we won't be able to find them. We are concerned about the danger that may ensue, that our loved one may start a fire. There are many concerns, but danger seems to be the primary one. Second, we are concerned about changing roles. So when you become a caregiver, usually you are the younger of the of the two. This is usually, it is not always the case, but your role is changing. You're no longer the person who is receiving guidance from your loved one. Rather, you are determining how things are going to move forward. So the reality is that you have changed roles, and that can sometimes be very tough. Um, One of the things that I think is most important is the issue of dealing with medical and legal issues. You know, when you have a loved one who has a medical situation, you have to have certain relationships with the medical community. You have to know who the doctor is, and you also have to have a doctor who respects the person for whom you're providing care and respects you. That is not always the case. So one of the things that I talk to caregivers about is really ensuring that the people who are taking care of the person they're caring for and who are taking care of them are respectful and are really aware of their needs. You know, sometimes doctors brush you off, and it's because they're under pressure. I don't want to give the impression that, doctors are always like this because they're just mean people. They are not. They're under a tremendous amount of pressure. But a relationship with your doctor is critically important to your being able to give the proper type of care.
Mm, got it. Got it. Now, name two things that caregivers need to think about when caring for someone. Because I think you talked about a health proxy. Could you
Yes.
explain what that is?
Well, a healthcare proxy
Uh-huh.
document outlines, first of all, what kinds of things you want if you are hospitalized, if you are, I don't want to use this term, but near death, if you are, there are times when, if you are gravely ill, you might be hooked up to tubes, right? And you might be hooked up to things that extend your life, but it's extending really your life not in a good way. So you're in a vegetative state, but you're hooked up to these tubes and machines, and it allows you to say what you would want, where that is concerned. So that's part of it. And I will say to you, I am not a legal person. I believe that every person who enters caregiving ultimately needs to have, I believe we all need to have someone who is a legal person who is aware of elder care law so that they can help you with this documentation, both with your will and with your healthcare proxy. The healthcare proxy also says who you would want to be in charge of your medical affairs if you were unable to take care of them yourself.
Mm. And so also, caregivers need to think about the financial part,
Well,
taking
that's
care of
why I
someone.
say,
Yeah.
yeah, that is why I say you should have a lawyer who is familiar, not familiar, but trained in elder care law. It is different than just regular law. They kind of understand wills and estates and those types of things. So I think there are two major documents that need to be worked on: your will and your healthcare proxy document. Among others, there are many others. I don't call myself the expert on the legal side. I do know some of the documents that are needed, but I would say this particular professional is needed in anyone's life to determine how they're going to move forward with their loved one and how they're going to move forward with themselves. But you asked me what else caregivers should be really taking a look at. I explained that I thought caregivers should look at their own personal health. So again, I'm going to mention the issue of health. There should be a focus on the types of things that you might be at risk for. This is not a discussion of genetics, but rather if you know that in your family, certain issues pertain, right? So in my family, hypertension is something that everybody seems to have. So if that is the case, then I must discuss that with my doctor and make sure that I keep on top of that. It so happens that I do have hypertension, and, I must make sure that I am doing the appropriate things, taking the medication if needed, and keeping myself as healthy as possible. I also believe that caregivers need to really reach out to their friends, not necessarily for the caregiving aspect, but to have a life beyond the caregiving. It is so important that you not become trapped and that you don't move away from the life that you had. I will tell you that the COVID period of time really was rough. And the reason it was rough was that even if you felt you were going to reach out to your friends, you couldn't do so in person necessarily, given the fact that this virus was floating around. But we are lucky enough to have things like Zoom, etc., that allow us to maintain some contact with the outer world besides the caregiving that you're doing.
Amen. Zoom was a lifesaver for a lot of businesses, for people. We kind of just thought about it for business, but I'm quite sure the COVID made Zoom a lot of billionaires. A lot of people that had stock became billionaires. So I got one more question for you, and then you'll be able to do a 2-minute close for us. How can a person plan now for their future caregiving? I know you were telling us that we should, get our will in place and different medical things and stuff. But honestly, today, if I wanted to start, what's the first thing, the most important thing you think I should do?
Well, I think the most important thing is to reach out to a professional who specializes in elder care law, because that person will be able to say to you, these are the documents that you need to think about and put in place. So let's say you wanted to do a will. You may not be thinking about some of the things that you might want to include in your will. So, that professional person can help you to think about, what do I want to do with my artwork? What do I want to do with this special item that was my grandmother's? Do I want to give it to someone special, or do I want to keep it for myself? That person can also help you with the healthcare proxy issue. Who is the best person for me to assign to do the various things that need to be done should I become unable to manage my own affairs? So I think that I would say to you, the best thing would be to seek the counsel of a lawyer who specializes in elder care. And by the way, you may be able to get some of these services at either low cost or no cost if in your town those services are offered. But it's certainly important for you. We have an ambulance going by, I'm sorry, but it's certainly important for you to begin to think about what you want to do with your life as you move forward. I think the next thing would be to find a physician whom you trust to begin to help you work on your health. I know that you've begun to do some things about that. It's so important because as we begin to go on in age, it becomes more and more important that, first of all, we know what runs in our families and we do our best to protect ourselves. You might not be able to prevent it, but at least you have a professional who's working with you on what your plan is going to be.
You're right. My weight was affecting my health, you know, and I knew I had to get some of this weight off. A lot of it would have been a little bit better. So when I went to my doctor this time, my numbers was better. Like I've always had real low vitamin D. It was normal. I'm on cholesterol medicine. And she was like, you know what? We don't have to increase it. She was going to increase it, but I told her, wait, let's see the numbers first. And she was like, we don't have to because your level is getting better. And it was some other things that I know by me losing weight had made it better. So I
You
was
hear,
grateful for that. Really
you've,
grateful.
you've heard of the term know your numbers.
Yes.
If you hang around people who are in the field of medicine, they will talk about know your numbers. And it's critically important that we do that because that helps us to keep ourselves as healthy as possible. We're never going to live forever, but we do not have to just give in to becoming ill. There are certain things we can control.
Let me see. I'm seeing people commenting. Keisha said, I agree with you, Dr. Straker, about self-care for the caretaker. It is so important for the caretaker to first take care of themselves. Yes, and it's true. And I'm so glad you're here to remind us. So, Dr. Pam, thank you for tonight. I love, like I said, the way you talk. When you speak, we know you speak in such a manner that you just can't help to hear what you got to say and to receive it. And you gave us some really good information. But the most important point I got out of everything, to put that oxygen mask on first before you help somebody and keep it on while you're helping somebody. Don't forget to take care of yourself. Nobody's life is more important than your life, honestly. And so thank you so much. So I'm going to give you a 2-minute closeout. Say whatever you want to say, but make sure as always to put your contact information. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up your website like now. And then I'm going to share the screen so they can see your pretty face while you talk.
Well, aren't you just sweet? First of all, thank you again for this opportunity. And I want to share with the audience that today, more than 40 million Americans provide long-term care for loved ones who are ill or disabled, and that's according to the National Alliance for Caregiving. And it's easy to forget that caregiving is a service. Caregivers provide physical, emotional, and financial assistance for people who need it the most, family members with disabilities or with chronic illnesses. I want to just mention that I did not say, but I believe it's also important to have a financial planner. Because that person can help you to realistically plan for the future and to realistically plan for the services that you will be able to access should you need them. I invite you to contact me on about.me/Dr. Pam Straker, where you can send me your contact information and a message. Again, that is about.me/ /Dr.Pam Straker. And please leave me a message so that I will know whether you'd like to join the mailing list for the Heroic Caregiving podcast, which will be coming soon, whether you would like to join the mailing list for just general talks and workshops on caregiving. And finally, in 2023, the book Heroic Caregiving, Lessons of Resilience, Coping, and Laughter will be published by Indie Books. I've been working with that publishing company. It's Indie International Books, and they have been wonderful. And they will be putting the book out in 2023. I thank you so much for taking the time to hear me this evening, and I hope all of you are taking care of yourselves.
Thank you. And in case y'all don't remember from the beginning, if I didn't say it, she is known as the heroic caregiver. So tonight you have truly been our hero in educating us about caregiving. So thank you so much for that 2-minute closeout. And so I'm going to do the official closeout. Tonight I want to thank Dr. Pam for taking time out to come to remind us to take care of ourselves first. And sometimes you can become a caregiver when you're definitely not ready for it. Sometimes you can see the signs coming. Like she said, she saw her mom and dad. When she walked into the kitchen, she saw the groceries, she saw the garage open, and she knew then that it was time for her to step in. And she just didn't step in like a whirlwind and just take care of everything. She did it in a respectable way to also her mom, too, that her mom had been her dad's first caregiver. And so you got to use wisdom also when you're taking care of somebody else. You got to also allow them to have some respect and some dignity also. So I want to thank you, Dr. Pam, for teaching us to be prepared to help those that down the line or might one day have to take care of us, because it's coming. There's not too many people that live to be a real old age without needing somebody. God has just structured this world that no matter, honestly, what age you are, you still need somebody. And when you get older, you sometimes need people a little bit more. So thank you, Dr. Pam, so much. And make sure y'all connect with her. She gave y'all her website. I showed you the beautiful reviews that she has. She's a professional. She's about her business. So once again, I thank everybody in the audience that commented. And hey, Ruby Girl contestants, how are you? So glad to see you in the chat tonight. So Dr. Pam, if it's anything that we can do, if you want to come back, if you want to talk some more, if you need support or advertising, we are here for you. We have your back. So,
Thank
all
you
right.
so much.
You are so welcome. And I'm so glad that Chris Ann connected us. A shout out to Chris Ann
Chris
Ambrose.
Ann, we give her a shout out.
Yay, all the way to Antigua.
Oh, that's right.
So, all right, everybody, have a great and wonderful night. I will be back next. No, I won't. Not for y'all, I won't. I just thought about it. I will be in a private chat room doing a reveal of the Ruby Girl of 2022. If you want to be a part of it, I'm going to add the link to the chat, but you can just go to Eventbrite, type in Ruby Girl Reveal, and you'll get the opportunity to get a ticket. The ticket is only $10. I'm about to shut it down because my room is almost at capacity. I have sold 50 tickets already, thanks to Miss Pelly Hunkin, giving her a shout out also. And so I'm going to shut it down soon because my room is going to be at capacity. So you don't want to miss it. We're going to have games. We're going to have a great time. And we're going to honor every single woman that has entered this contest. And remember, y'all, every Thursday is Ruby Girl Day. Put on your Ruby Girl shirt, rock it, put on your uniform because you are rare, virtuous, and valuable. So thank you, Dr. Pam, so much. You have a great and wonderful evening, everyone that's out there. And thank you for watching. Good night.
Good night.